to the states and the people, that the federal government is limited in its power, and that the people will have the means to fight back against tyranny if it should occur. So when these liberal fellows want to tell you that the Second Amendment is about establishing a militia, George Mason says, I ask you, sir, what is the militia? It's the whole people. To disarm the people is the best and most effectual way to enslave them. Jefferson had a quote that those that beat their rifles into plowshares will plow for those that didn't. Another quote from Samuel Adams, that the said Constitution be never construed to authorize Congress to prevent the people of the United States, or peaceable citizens, from keeping their own arms. Citizens, their own arms, not a militia. Patrick Henry was a bit of a wild man. I don't know, Patrick may not have made it nowadays. He was quite the radical. His quote is, are we at last brought to such humiliating and debasing degradation that we cannot be trusted with arms for our own defense? Patrick was a bit of a firebrand. Even in the 1760s, he wanted to overthrow George III. Nobody else was even talking about it yet. And he stood up in the House of Burgesses and said, quote, that not only did he put together a bunch of laws stating that no body other than a body in that colony had the right to tax any citizen in that colony, and that actually passed in the House because most of the civil and genteel planters weren't there. They had a quorum of like a third of the group there, so he passed a bunch of radical laws that they had to get rid of the next day. But one of the things he said was, Caesar had Brutus, and I forget the other one, and George III will have, and when he said that, everybody jumped up and started screaming, whoa, 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 you can't say that. And he said he will have, he said, all right, if this be tyranny, then let's make the most of it. He was ready to move forward 10 years before everybody else. Anyway, George Washington, our first president, he has a beautiful quote, firearms stand next in importance to the Constitution itself. They are the American people's liberty teeth and keystone under independence. From the hour the Pilgrims landed to the present day, events, occurrences, and tendencies prove that to ensure peace, security, and happiness, the rifle and pistol are equally indispensable. The very atmosphere of firearms anywhere restrains evil interference. They deserve a place of honor with all that's good. So to tie that into what's going on now, shall not be infringed in gun control as we see it today. Now granted, our founding fathers could have never envisioned machine guns and airplanes and all that sort. But they thought we should have just as much right to any protection as the Army. But today, yesterday, Senor Calderon, President of Mexico, he called for the U.S. to reinstate the assault weapons ban to prevent 90% of the guns from entering Mexico. Hillary Clinton and Obama and many others in the administration have all used that same number. 90% of the guns captured in Mexico are traced back to the U.S. That's what Hillary Clinton said. Well, if you go look at the FBI and the ATF's actual numbers, they actually had an ATF head had to come out and contradict her, because in 2007-2008, 29,000 guns were recovered at crime scenes in Mexico. Of those, 5,100 were traced back to the U.S. The majority of the guns being used in the drug wars in Mexico are from America. We gave them to the Mexican army to defend themselves, and they all defected and started working for the drug lords. So they brought their machine guns with them. I can't go down to Carter's country and buy a 50 caliber Browning machine gun. I wish I could. But they have them in droves in Mexico. They didn't come from a gun show at George Brown. The gun show loophole, that's another thing the liberals like to talk about. There's no such thing. I'm a licensed federal firearms dealer. I know all the laws that you have to do to sell a gun to someone. There's no difference in those laws when you're selling them at a store or at a gun show. You still have to do a background check. You still have to be eligible to purchase that firearm. All laws of sales of firearms apply. Besides that, the Brady campaign and all these guys, they want to say that, oh, all these guns that are used in crimes are bought at gun shows because of the gun show loophole. The FBI did a long study and found that 0.7% of firearms used in a crime in the U.S. came from a gun show. Where's the loophole? It's not there. It's yet another lie that's been propagated by the media and the Brady campaign, and your liberal friends and neighbors like to buy into it. So let's educate them. This is a little thing, this is a little closing statement I have for you. This was back in 2009 when President Obama was going to speak to all the school children. This was on Organizing for America's website. I had to crop it down so you couldn't see the creepy Nazi-like eagle and the Obama logo mated together. This is his people making this. Children for Obama, how can you help your president? And they wonder why I kept my kids home that day. I want to finish with this quote from Noah Webster. I think it's pretty fitting to our current regime. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be masters. Let's not let them.